Hi writers, welcome back to Dr. Barry's Creative Writing class. Today we're going to be talking about the truth, and the truth hurts. So this is going to be a particularly painful lecture. Just kidding. I hope not anyway. So the most important thing when you're telling a story, especially a creative nonfiction story, is to tell the truth. I've said in past lectures that fiction and poetry are a lie that tells the truth. Well, creative nonfiction is a little bit different. It is the truth that tells the truth. I've also said it's telling the story, telling the truth with style, and that you can apply some of the conventions of fiction and poetry to it, and you can. But again, you must tell the truth because your reader is going to know if you're fibbing to them, right? So, stories are fictional or made up. We know this. Essays, in the words of Michael Pearson, have a genuine obligation to factual truths. Right? If we are telling someone, if we are writing an essay, we are deviating from the standard fiction, and it is our responsibility to tell the truth to the best of our knowledge. We're going to go into that a little bit more, but now we are in what is known as the postmodernist period. Postmodernists tell us that truth is an illusion, and instead there are many lowercase truths. Right? This is why you hear people saying, well, I'm just speaking my truth. Okay. Well, there is some veracity to do that. Personally, I break from the postmodernists. I believe there is objective truth, but neither here nor there. It is also the case that there are many lowercase truths. According to B. Ming Nguyen and Porter Shreve, especially when it comes to the personal essays and memoirs, the nature of truth is bound inescapably by personal viewpoints, that it can never be charted or pinpointed. Accurate, right? The way you remember it is going to be different from someone else's memory. And the way you remember it, because memory is kind of subjective and selective, memory may not, what is true to you may not be objectively true. All right, but you're telling it as true as you know how. You are telling the truth as you recall it. That is because, that is why when you go to interview, like in the police procedure, let's say go to interview witnesses, several different witnesses will witness the same thing, but they'll see it several different ways, right? It's because that's how our minds work. We latch onto things. We fill in blanks, our minds do. And so what you remember and what may be the actual fact might be a little different from the account, but you're telling the truth to the best of your knowledge. One thing writers of creative nonfiction must take into account: memory is selective, right? You're not going to remember everything with complete accuracy, but you're going to remember it the way you remember it. Essayist John Lane says, I don't make things up, but I work from and trust my memory, right? The way you recall it, the way it's shaped in your head, yeah, that's what you have to rely on because it's all we have. Now, there's probably not going to be a court case or litigation or someone's life and freedom may depend on it. So it doesn't have the same um, import as a court record or something of that nature, right? So all we have is to work from our memory. You can trust your memory. Laurie Lynn Drummond says, tell the truth even if it makes you wince. Sometimes our stories are uncomfortable, right? Yeah. Sometimes we're going to be telling things, we're going to be relating subjects that are painful. But tell the truth. You give the unvarnished version of what you did. Your reader will appreciate it and they can benefit from it, right? And your story will definitely benefit from it. Always tell the truth, even if it kind of hurts. You read David Sedaris's work. Sometimes the recollections are uncomfortable, self-deprecating, even, personally embarrassing. But that's okay because, we are all human. We all go through these issues. We all have these things that we're less than proud of, but we grow from them, right? Same thing goes on with your writing. Hence our quote, tell the truth even if it makes you wince. The memories that are most uncomfortable are often the ones that make the best subject matter for essays. Yeah, you see these things. Just tales of recovery, tales of stories about people who have gone through terrible things and come out the other side and learned from them. I remember there's a memoir written by a guy who was a rock climber. We talked about, I think, in the textbook talks about that. And he got his arm stuck while bouldering out in Utah somewhere. And after about 2.5 days, he realized that no one knew where he was. No one would be coming for him. And so he had to make the uncomfortable choice to amputate his arm from the elbow down in order to survive. And he did. Very uncomfortable event, obviously, but it became the basis for a book that he wrote about the experience, and later on a movie. Right? Terribly uncomfortable, but makes for fascinating reading. Now, the events we write about may not necessarily be painful. A lot of David Sedaris' work, again, very funny, very, very interesting. I wrote a creative nonfiction piece about my coming to terms and learning about gravity. Of course, I related to the story about falling off the wall as a child. There was another incident where the carnival came to town. I lived in a small town, and the carnival coming to town was a big deal. All the rides and the slides and the games and everything, and everybody was there. So I was going with my mom and sister, and we had to park a ways off from the carnival because everybody who had gotten there earlier had filled in the closer spaces. So mom and sister moving a little too slow for my tastes. So I take off running. It's dark, it's night, and I'm not really aware of what is in front of me. And what is in front of me is a pretty wide and fairly deep ditch. According to my mom, I just disappeared from sight. As I remembered, I took off and I'm running, and the next thing I know, I'm in the dark, and I'm looking up and I can see the sky above me. I look left and right, I can't see anything, and I cross the other side of the ditch, and it's sloped, and so I just kind of paw my way up to the top, and I go, Mom? Yeah. Funny. A little uncomfortable, but not particularly. Okay, so it's not necessarily funny. Your memoir can be hilarious, too, or your creative nonfiction essay can be funny. But it's still challenging to write about our lives accurately. One way to do that, write about something that happened recently. In David Sedaris' essay, he uses a fairly memorable turn of phrase, the rabbit of Easter, right? If someone uses a turn of phrase that is fairly common, uses it often, your readers are more likely to remember that and to believe you. And that's what we're going for, too. We want to tell the truth, and we want it to be believed. Lee Gutkind says, I've always been a huge exaggerator, but when I write something and I put it on a scale, and if it's 97% true, I think that's true enough. I'm not going to call it fiction because 3% of it isn't true. Okay, you can play with the facts a little bit. You can, of course, as I always say, this is the retelling, so it's better than the way that actually happened. You want to go for that 97% solution, though, right? Don't be bound by the facts. It's creative nonfiction, so you can play around with it a little bit, but try to be as honest as possible. Now, how do we know if we can trust the truth of distant memories? Like I said, the way we remember things isn't always accurate. It's not always a perfect recollection of things as they happened. That's okay, right? We remember it the way we remember it, and that's factual enough. So the good news is readers don't expect us to have precise memories. Nobody has a precise memory, not at all. Our brains fill things in, they drop things out. Some things are uncomfortable, get buried. Other things get fabricated. Your reader knows this. Some writers compress the events of several weeks into a single day. We inevitably leave out material that doesn't add to the main thrust of our essays. right? Because we can't. It'd be too long. We'd be writing encyclopedias. You can't possibly fill in every moment of every event. Besides, it makes for a really boring essay. Okay. Now, Gil Allen says, if you call something a memoir, then you're obligated to respect the facts. You're free to select from them, but you can't write as if they don't exist. Okay? You can choose what you choose to write about, that is, but you can't pretend that these facts are not part of your history. Carol Bly says, readers rightfully feel bruised and condescended to when an author lies to them. So don't lie to your readers. It can have very bad consequences. Your readers are smart. They're going to pick up on something when you're not. They're going to pick up on it when you're not telling them the truth. Okay, as was the case with James Frey. He wrote a memoir about drug addiction called A Million Little Pieces. And he was later found out by fact checkers from thesmokinggun.com that he made up most of it. In fact, he fabricated a lot of it, got in a lot of trouble, destroyed his reputation, went on Oprah and got chastised by her because it was part of her Oprah's book club. And yeah, so long story short, don't be like James Frey. Don't lie. You're gonna get caught. The truth will come up. Disclaimer now. Essayists often use disclaimers acknowledging that in order to protect the privacy of others and to avoid getting sued, the names and places and descriptions have been changed. And that's totally okay. In fact, that's probably a pretty wise move. You don't want to get, if you're telling a controversial story, you don't want the people involved getting mad at you, especially if they're family. And even if they do get mad, you don't want them to be able to take you to court and sue you for defamation. So you do still have an obligation to your readers to let them know, okay, this is what happened, but the names have been changed to protect the innocent and protect me from the guilty. Research. Research is important. Even in, we can't get away from it, even in creative writing. Believe it or not, novel writers do a whole heck of a lot of research. I have a colleague who's working on a novel about the Old West, and she's doing scads and scads of research about people and events and all manner of things there. Right? Research is important. Research can even be fun because you're adding to what you already know. It makes you a better, well-rounded person, and it makes your essay more well-rounded. If your essay contains factual information that the reader could easily verify, you must do your homework, right? Especially these days, in the days of the internet, where it's a lot easier for people to figure out, wait a minute, the quick Google search will tell you whether or not someone is lying. A quick Google search will tell you the facts, a Wikipedia entry, and there are all these resources out there where people can look up the facts surrounding your essay and your work, and if you're lying to them, they're going to find out pretty quickly. Nothing will cost you your reader's confidence faster than a poorly researched fact or an inaccurate statement that can easily be researched. Like I said, this is the age of Google. People are going to find you out. Don't let the facts overwhelm you. If you're no longer having fun, maybe drop the research or choose a different topic that's not so research intensive. If you're not enjoying the writing, the reader isn't going to enjoy reading it. Simple fact. All right, so let's get to our checklist. Does your creative nonfiction tell the truth? Okay, you have to tell your readers the truth. You are revealing something about yourself in these essays. It can be something serious, can be something comical, but it's got to be truthful. Most writers have a gut instinct for the truth. Even if it's on a subjective emotional experience, it should feel like the truth to you. And finally, have you conducted sufficient research to ensure that the essay contains all the necessary factual information? A few solid details in support of your claims go a long way toward establishing your authority for writing on your topic. Make sure you've earned it. All right, so that is the truth with regard to creative nonfiction. Hope you enjoyed it. Most of all, have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.